Hey everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. If you're here, I bet you're looking to speak English more fluently, right? I know I am.
Absolutely, and we're in luck because we're diving into a great article today, How to Speak English Fluently. 10 key steps from the EF Global blog.
Perfect. And you know what really caught my eye? The article says that fluency is not just about nailing the grammar.
Right, it's about being able to express yourself confidently and comfortably.
Like, you can be grammatically perfect, but still sound kind of robotic if you're not using the language in a natural way.
Exactly, and that's where this idea of thinking beyond textbook English comes in. The article really dives into idioms and how they can help you sound more fluent.
Oh yeah, idioms, those are fun. It's like using those quirky expressions shows you really get the culture.
It's like you're speaking their language, both literally and figuratively.
Haha, yeah. You know, it's funny, the article gave that example, break a leg for good luck.
Oh yeah.
Could you imagine, like, you're about to give a big presentation and someone's like, break a leg, and you trip and actually break your leg?
Oh no.
Talk about bad luck, right?
Yeah, that's the thing with idioms. They can be funny when you think about what they literally mean. But that's what makes them so memorable.
So true. But I'm also realizing now that you have to be careful which idioms you use.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, some idioms are different in American English versus British English, right?
Right.
Like in America, we might say to your own horn to mean bragging.
Oh, yeah.
But in Britain, they say blow your own trumpet. Same idea, but, different cultural flavor.
Interesting. It's like you really do have to be aware of those cultural differences, don't you?
Absolutely. It's not just about the words themselves. It's about understanding how they're used in different contexts.
That makes total sense. It's like fluency has this cultural layer to it, too.
Exactly. Now, on that note, the article also talks about expanding your vocabulary, which is something that can feel really daunting.
Oh, tell me about it. English language is huge. How many words are there? Like 750,000?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, come on. How can you ever learn that many words?
Well, you don't have to know every single word to be fluent. But using the right words effectively can really boost your fluency.
So it's more about choosing your words carefully rather than just knowing a ton of them.
That's right. And one thing the article suggests, instead of using generic words like very or really all the time, try to find more precise synonyms.
Oh, that's a good tip. So instead of saying very lucky, I could say fortunate.
Exactly.
Instead of really good, I could say like exceptional or outstanding.
Yeah, these small changes can actually make you sound a lot more fluent.
Okay, so that's vocabulary. But I gotta ask, is there any way to make learning all these words less overwhelming?
Well, the article talks about this idea of learning in chunks. Have you heard about that?
In chunks? Not really.
Well, the idea is that native speakers don't build sentences word by word. They use these memorized phrases or chunks of language. And apparently there's even some neuroscience behind this.
Whoa, neuroscience. Really?
Yeah. Basically, our brains are wired to process language in chunks. So when you learn phrases, you're actually creating stronger memory associations, which makes it easier to retrieve those words later on in the conversation.
Interesting. So instead of trying to memorize a dictionary, I should be focusing on learning how words fit together in natural phrases.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And you can start doing this right away. The next time you learn a new word, try using it in a phrase.
Awesome. That sounds much less scary than memorizing endless lists of words. Okay, so we've talked about idioms and vocabulary, but what about accents? Should you try to sound like a native speaker?
It's a good question, and the article actually suggests that, choosing a specific dialect can be helpful.
Like if I want to live in London, I should focus on British English.
Exactly. It'll make it easier to understand the locals and their humor. But here's the good news. You did have to completely get rid of your own accent.
Oh, phew, because I kind of like my accent.
And you should. It's part of who you are. And research actually shows that a slight foreign accent doesn't make you less credible. It can even make you more memorable.
That's such a relief to hear. So it's okay to embrace my unique accent. But with all the different dialects out there, how do you even choose which one to focus on? Like the article mentions Irish, South African, Kiwi, Texan. There are so many.
I know, right? Like being in a giant ice cream shop with hundreds of flavors.
Ooh, I love ice cream. But yeah, too many choices.
Haha, exactly. But you know what? You don't have to pick just one. You can explore different dialects and see which ones resonate with you. It's all part of the fun.
Okay, so we've got idioms, we've got vocabulary, we've got dialects. What else is there to consider when it comes to fluency?
Well, it's not just about the words themselves. It's about understanding the culture behind the language.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like you can know the dictionary definition of a word, but still not really get it.
Exactly. Language is a reflection of the culture it comes from. So to really speak English fluently, you need to be aware of the cultural references embedded in the language.
Like slang, idioms, pop culture references, all that stuff.
Precisely. It's like unlocking a secret code that allows you to connect with native speakers on a deeper level.
So even if I know all the grammar rules, if I don't understand the cultural context, I could still miss the mark.
Exactly. And the article recommends immersing yourself in English language media. Watching TV shows, movies, listening to music, reading books.
So basically just enjoy myself and call it language practice.
Exactly. The more you absorb, the more fluent you become, both culturally and linguistically.
Awesome. So we've got idioms, vocabulary, dialects, culture. What else are we missing on this fluency adventure?
Well, how about slang?
Oh, slang. That's a whole other beast, isn't it?
It really is. And the article points out that slang changes so quickly, so it can be hard to keep up.
Yeah, what's trendy one day is outdated the next. So how do you even stay on top of it all?
It's like being a trendsetter. If you're heading to London, you might want to brush up on British slang, or even just stay updated on global trends and all those crazy abbreviations people use online.
It's like you have to be a language detective constantly searching for clues.
Exactly. Now, here's a tip from the article that might surprise you. Watching TV can actually boost your fluency.
Wait, seriously? Just watching TV?
Yeah, think about it. You're hearing natural conversations, different accents, slang.
Huh. I guess it is like a crash course in conversational English.
Exactly. And the article even suggests playing around with subtitles. Turning them on can help you connect the spoken words with their written form, and turning them off can really challenge your listening skills.
It's like choosing the difficulty levels in a video game.
That's a great analogy. Now, another technique I recommend is imitating native speakers.
Oh, like copying their accent and pronunciation. Isn't that kind of awkward?
Not really. It's more like shadowing. You pick a favorite celebrity or speaker and pay attention to their rhythm and intonation.
It's like having a personal pronunciation coach.
Exactly. The article even suggests listening to audiobooks of actors reading their autobiographies.
Oh, that's cool. So I can enjoy a good story and improve my pronunciation at the same time. Sign me up.
It's a win-win. And ultimately, all these tips and tricks lead to the most important ingredient for fluency: immersion.
Immersion. That sounds intense.
It can be, but the article stresses how important it is to use English in real-life situations as much as possible.
So it's not enough to just study grammar and vocabulary. I actually have to go out there and use it.
Exactly. It's like learning to swim. You can read all about it, but you won't really learn until you jump in the water.
That's a good analogy. I get it. But what if you can't just move to an English-speaking country? What are some other ways to immerse yourself in the language?
Well, the article has some really cool ideas for that. They talk about creating your own little English bubble right at home.
That's a cool image. So like surrounding myself with English as much as possible. But how do you actually do that?
They suggest some simple things like switching your phone and social media to English, or like listening to English music and podcasts, even just reading the news in English.
So it's like making English a constant part of my daily life.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to feel like work either. I mean, you can watch your favorite English TV shows and call it language practice.
Haha, I like that. Guilt-free binge watching. But sometimes just listening to English passively feels kind of, well, passive.
You're right. Passive listening is a good start, but it's important to actively engage with the language too.
Okay, so active engagement. What does that actually look like?
Well, it could be finding opportunities to talk with native speakers.
Oh, like joining a conversation group or something.
Yeah. Or even just chatting with someone at a cafe. The key is to actually use your speaking skills.
That makes sense. It's like taking the training wheels off and just going for it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's something I struggle with. Like, I get so scared of messing up.
I know it's tough, but mistakes are part of the process. In fact, the article actually says that making mistakes is crucial for learning.
Really?
Yeah, because when you make a mistake, you can see where you need to improve.
So instead of beating myself up over mistakes, I should see them as learning opportunities.
Exactly. Now, speaking of mistakes, sometimes I don't even realize I've made one until someone points it out.
Yeah, me too. Like, how do you get better at catching your own mistakes?
That's where self-correction comes in, and that ties back into active listening.
Oh, right. So the more I listen to native speakers, the more I'll develop that sense of what sounds right and wrong.
Exactly. And you can also ask native speakers or language teachers for feedback. They can help you see those little things you might be missing.
Okay, so it's all about being proactive and seeking out those opportunities to learn. But sometimes it can feel overwhelming, especially when you don't see results right away.
That's true. Language learning takes time and effort. And that brings us to another important point the article makes about mindset.
Mindset. Okay, yeah, I've heard about that. But what does it mean for language learning specifically?
Well, it's about having a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset.
Can you explain the difference?
Sure. A fixed mindset thinks, I'm just not good at languages.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely thought that before.
But a growth mindset says, I'm learning and I'm getting better every day.
I like that much better.
Right. It's about focusing on progress, not perfection, and embracing the challenges along the way.
Okay, so it's not about being fluent overnight. It's about making small improvements over time. But it's hard not to get discouraged when you feel like fluency is this far-off goal.
I get it. And that's why the article talks about being a lifelong learner of English.
Lifelong learner, I like that. It takes the pressure off.
Exactly. It's about shifting your perspective from, I need to achieve fluency, to, I get to keep exploring this language.
It's like the journey is the destination.
That's beautiful. I love that. And speaking of enjoying the journey, the article also talks about not being afraid to express yourself, even if your English isn't perfect.
Oh man, that's something I need to work on. I'm always so worried about sounding stupid.
I think a lot of us feel that way. But you know what? Even native speakers don't speak perfectly all the time.
Really? They don't?
Nope.
Yeah.
Language is messy and imperfect, and that's totally fine. The article actually says that a little bit of imperfection can make you sound more relatable.
So it's okay to be myself and not worry about being perfect all the time.
Exactly. Now, while we're talking about expressing yourself, let's not forget about body language.
Oh yeah, body language is so important. I've definitely had conversations where I could tell what someone meant just from their expressions.
Absolutely. The article points out that fluency is more than just words. It's also about how you use your body.
So like facial expressions, gestures, eye contact, all that stuff.
Exactly. And you know what's a simple but powerful gesture? Smiling.
Aw, I love a good smile.
It can make you seem more approachable and confident, which can actually make you feel more fluent.
It's like when you feel good, you communicate better.
Exactly. You know, before we move on, there's one more point I want to touch on from the article.
Okay, what is it?
It's this idea of finding your own voice in English.
Finding your own voice. I like that, but what does it mean?
Well, it means going beyond just copying native speakers and finding a style that feels authentic to you.
So it's about bringing my own personality and experiences to the language.
Exactly. It's about owning your English and making it your own.
I love that. It's like taking all these tools and techniques we've been talking about and using them to create something unique and beautiful.
That's a great way to put it. And ultimately, that's what makes someone a truly fluent and engaging communicator.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. We talked about creating an English bubble, active listening, mindset, body language, and finding your own voice.
It's been quite a journey.
Wow, we've covered so much already in this deep dive about how to speak English more fluently.
We have, but like you said earlier, there's always more to explore, right?
For sure. And, you know, one thing that stood out to me in the article was this emphasis on active listening.
Oh yeah, active listening. It's so important.
I know it's not just about hearing the words, but like, how do you actually do it? How do you become an active listener?
Well, it's about really focusing on what the speaker is saying and trying your best to understand their message.
So it's more than just nodding along and pretending to pay attention.
Right. You got to actually engage your brain. Think of it like a mental workout for your listening skills.
Okay, so I'm using my brain. What else?
It's not just about receiving information, though. It's also about responding in a thoughtful way. Like asking questions to clarify things or summarizing what you've heard to make sure you understand.
So it's a two-way street. It's like a conversation dance.
That's a great way to put it. And the cool thing is, the more you practice active listening, the better you get at understanding spoken English.
Even when people are speaking fast or have a strong accent.
Especially then. Active listening helps you tune in to those little details like pronunciation and intonation.
It's like you're training your ears to be super listeners.
Exactly. Now you know what goes hand in hand with active listening. Self-correction.
Ah, right. Catching your own mistakes.
Yep. And the more you listen to native speakers, the more you'll start to notice when something sounds off in your own speech.
It's like developing that internal grammar alarm. But what if I'm not sure if I made a mistake?
Well, that's where those active listening skills come in handy. You can always ask a native speaker or a teacher for feedback, too.
It's like having a language mentor by your side. Okay, so we've got active listening, self-correction. What else should we keep in mind on this fluency journey?
Well, the article makes a great point about celebrating your progress. Even the small wins.
Oh, I love that. It's so easy to get caught up in what you haven't achieved yet.
I know, right? But it's important to acknowledge how far you've come.
So, like, should I throw a party every time I learn a new word?
Maybe not a party, but, find a way to acknowledge those moments that feels good to you. Maybe it's a little treat or sharing your accomplishment with a friend.
It's like taking a moment to appreciate the view on a hike. And speaking of journeys, I think it's worth repeating that fluency really is a journey, not a destination.
It's true. We've been saying it all along. It's an ongoing process.
There's no finish line. And you know what? I actually find that kind of comforting.
Me too. Because it means we're all in this together, constantly learning and growing.
Exactly. And that brings us back to what the article said about being a lifelong learner.
Yes. It's about embracing that idea that there's always more to learn.
I love that. So it's not about reaching some perfect level of fluency. It's about the joy of discovery and the process of learning.
You got it. And remember, language is ultimately about connection. It's about building bridges between people.
That's beautiful. So as we continue on our English learning adventures, let's not forget to use our skills to connect with others.
To have those meaningful conversations and to share our unique perspectives with the world.
Absolutely. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into fluency, and I have to say, I'm feeling so inspired to keep learning and growing.
Me too. It's been a real pleasure exploring all these tips and ideas with you.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've learned some valuable things that you can use on your own language learning journey.
Remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the process, celebrate your wins, and most importantly, have fun.
That's right. Until next time, happy language learning, everyone.